Three,
All right.
2, 1.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sametha Thor. I'm 17 years old, and I'm a social media strategist and a graphic designer at Global Language Connect. Today, we are here with Katherina Fink. She is one of Italy's youngest hyperpolyglots at just 22 years old. She speaks an impressive 7 languages: English, Italian, French, German, Czech, Mandarin, and Spanish, showcasing her incredible passion and dedication to language learning. In addition to her linguistic channels, Katherina is a content creator whose YouTube channel has garnered over 68,000 views, where she shares her insights, tips, and inspiration for fellow young language learners. Join us as we explore her journey, strategies, and advice for aspiring future polyglots. Welcome to the meeting, Katherina. It's lovely to meet you. All right. So, my first question to you is, I hope you're doing well today.
Very well, thank you. Hope yourself too.
Hmm. What inspired you in the first place to start your language learning journey?
Mhm. I'm so grateful to be on this podcast. I love the introduction and I love with the first question we're starting. What inspired me for the language learning journey that we're all on, honestly? It is what inspired me is my surrounding. I grew up in the north of Italy where we naturally, by 15 years old, will speak all 4 languages. It's very similar to India where we have many, many languages.
Yeah.
National languages and also local languages. We have the same thing in the northern part of Italy as well. And so this is what really inspired me to just dig deeper and just take the extra mile to learn these extra phrases and extra words that would connect me better to my fellow people from my country, friends, family members, and even people from my hobbies. And so I quickly understood that languages is a vital part in human connection. And without languages, you really are alone.
Yes, also while going through a profile, what I realized was that most of the languages that you have learned is sort of a way for you to adapt to your surroundings rather than just learning them out of like just a hobby or something. It's more of a vitality in your life, learning so many languages.
Well seen. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Mhm.
Hmm. So, what does your language learning process usually look like? Like, what are the steps you do to catch on to a new language?
Love the question. So adding on to that, for me, the main importance is to use that language right away in conversation. And so whenever I first start to even tackle a language, even think of starting to learn a language, I need to ask myself, like, what are my connections? Like, what are my actual emotional connections to that language? So I soon found out that it doesn't take much. In Spanish, I had my best friend and we knew each other for 5 years until I finally said, no, I want to learn her language. And when I say it doesn't take much in Chinese, it's just my best friend that told me, hey, Chinese is the world language. And that's one of the most people in the whole world. Now India surpassed China, but back then when I learned Chinese, China was the world leading population in country and population. And so these small things that are like, whoa, what inspired me? I'm a retired badminton athlete, and so I traveled to China 3 times to train badminton. And only the thought of knowing Chinese would immediately catapult me back to the memories I had going to China, knowing the language, talking there, going to the mall alone as a female with blonde hair in China, going to mall, being able to navigate in the mall, what to buy, where to go, where to get this, where to get that, in the market. Everything is so full of only Chinese, but I can navigate it. And that was very special for me. And I decided, no, I wanna showcase this and I want to showcase what languages can do to you that Italian girl from the Alps from the European Alps can go to China or go to India or go to Thailand and be there and feel comfortable there, and this is all through language.
Right. Oh, so like you used actual real life experiences in order to sort of enhance your skills.
Mhm.
Right.
Definitely.
That's very unique. And I think that takes a lot of courage as well, because when you first learn a language and you try to speak it with the locals, it's not a very easy job, but that's actually quite a good tip for everyone.
Mhm.
What, throughout these processes, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced, considering the fact that you know multiple languages?
Mhm. Thanks. I love the question. So multiple languages means there's doors to just multiple, I would say suits. Let's say I have a German suit in my wardrobe. I have an Italian suit in my wardrobe. And whenever I want to fit in with the locals, I wear this suit. And now what happens when you know multiple languages? You got to take care of those suits. You cannot just let them in the wardrobe unworn. You cannot let them like just be there collecting dust. And that makes the material not high quality anymore. And the connection between you and the fabric is not the same anymore. That's the same for languages. Whenever you know multiple languages, like it's like deep relationships, long-term relationships with German, with Italian, with Spanish. And sometimes it happens that I was in Italian class and I was just starting to learn Spanish on my own. And when I was Italian class in school, I somehow was wearing my Spanish suit. So Spanish words would come out in my Italian class, and my Italian teacher, who is very passionate about teaching Italian, would sometimes look at me like, "What did you just come out your mouth? This is not Italian. It sounds Italian, but you're just mixing something out." And this is, I believe, the hardest challenge about being multilingual is especially when you start out to learn a language. Um, like to have your brain in that language, and when that language is time to speak it, to use this tool of the language, while when you it's time to speak another language, you use that suit when you know what I'm speaking. And there's a way to kind of go and not mix things up when you speak multiple languages, and this is solely and what I've discovered is to go to a level to to the language of the language where it is somehow fluent, and so that it is kind of like you know when to use it. And for sure, when you know a language to a high degree, that would be like B1, B2, this is when it's kind of locked in. And this is when you not confuse it no more. But when you start learning multiple languages at the same time, it's very easy for them to confuse it. And that's my take on multiple languages.
Okay. So I noticed that in your story, you mentioned at one point of time that your teacher said that it sounded Italian, but it wasn't. Does is it because like the accent plays a big role? So the accent sounds like one language, but you're speaking another. Is
Mhm.
it like that?
Definitely. For Spanish, it was in the beginning. I believe that's the same for any language that is similar to a language you already speak. You basically speak the language you already speak, but with the words of the new language. That's what I did for Spanish. I used Italian as the base, or so the syntax would be Italian, but then I would just input um, and overscribe it with Spanish words. And sometimes Spanish and Italian are similar, sometimes they're different. And with accents, definitely is a big take. Yes.
Hmm. Also, what sorry, my bad. You said that you use Mandarin. If I'm not wrong, Mandarin requires a lot of control over your tone because the same word, if it sounds different, it can mean something completely else.
Mhm.
Right. So was it challenging for you?
Mhm. Um, Chinese. Okay, Mandarin. So that's a very good question. I made a whole little reel about this, where basically, if I want to condense it in 5 seconds, it's like there's, let's say, two sounds. All right. I play badminton and he is big. All right. Play and big have the same syllable. It's D-A, da. But big is da, while play is da. And so if you say, I play badminton, it would be 我打羽毛球. But if you confuse the tone and you say 我大 instead of da, remember da is play, da is big. And if you said 我大羽毛球, it would be I big 羽毛球. And it doesn't make sense. So naturally, natives would say, hey, I think this doesn't make sense. You probably mean da instead of da this time. right? And that's what we're thinking. That's the challenge really of Chinese. Mhm.
And also, since you know so many languages which have gendered nouns, was it more difficult to get accustomed to the gendered nouns, or was it more difficult to get accustomed to the tones of Mandarin? Because since you grew up in Italy, I have a feeling that you were maybe already used to the gendered nouns.
Yeah, exactly. So Italian and all grammar that we've seen in Europe, in the central of Europe, comes from Latin. And so I was lucky enough to have Latin in school, in high school. And there, it's when the roots of gender noun were introduced, and we use three. So even in Latin, even it's a Romance language, Latin uses also three. It's the rose, la rosa, la, feminine, okay? It's um, the man, il ragazzo, masculine, and there will be also neutral, also in Latin, but I will say them in German. For example, the little girl, that would be das Mädchen. This is like the third and neutral. And this would mean, yeah, doesn't have any real particular connection to the real world if something is female, male, or neutral. Definitely back then there was a reason, but now if I were a foreigner to German and I would learn German all over again, thankfully I'm a native. So
Mhm.
if I would literally use like audio as my main resource, because then you just get used to how the natives naturally use their didas, which is the female, the male, the neutral, their didas. And they naturally use it in speech. And every time you get curious about a noun, then you naturally come across how they use the article for that noun. And this is so helpful because once you then look at this new vocab that you just picked out from your intuition, you then look it up in example phrases, and there naturally the articles occur again. And naturally, when you think of that noun after a couple of days of study, you will see the mouse as the mouse, because their mouse would sound a little weird. Das mouse would sound weird because you've now heard hundreds times the mouse, the mouse, the mouse, the mouse, right? That's my take on that.
That was quite insightful, actually. How do you stay consistent and motivated in this long journey of yours in learning different languages? Because since you learn so many languages, and it's every language has its own personal challenge. So I feel like it's very easy to give up. But the fact that you have stayed consistently up to date and you have actually put in that effort, I would like to ask you, what do you do to keep yourself going in these situations?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I think that's the most important one, especially 2025 rolling over. If there was one thing I could say to all language learners right now on how to keep going on and how to keep on there until July 2025, until October 25, until December 2025, because that's when the real fruits are going to come. And that's when you can harvest the real connections that you've built just now for your language learning. And so, what I would tell you is to kind of think, and envision what do you want to experience by December 2025? And where do you want to be using that language? And so what one of my students, after 2 weeks of going over the 3 sessions, 2 weeks together over the topic, what is her dream, her vision, she came to the realization that her dream was to have she's American, to have a family in both Korean and English American. And so she wants to have um to to grow her children bilingual, Korean and American. And that's a big goal. And this will not happen until years, right? Until the future. She's my age, so she doesn't have a boyfriend even yet, but she has connections to Korea and she's studying the language. And so that's enough for her to keep motivation. And so then you require smaller goals because her big goal is to have a Korean family. Cool. I had the same goal for my English. And now this goal is like 40% met. But there's other goals, small goals along the ways those 40%, like I have smashed those goals, and just 40% of the lifetime goal of the language apprentice, 40% are met. That means like smaller goals along the way have already been smashed. And that is truth. So there were smaller goals. For example, in Spanish, I wanted to know and be in a room with natives and be the one to joke and be the one to laugh at the jokes. And that happened after 3 years of actually studying Spanish. And by the time that that goal hit, of course, you're like, whoa, I really manifested this goal for myself. And I really kept continuing because I had this big vision in my mind. And that made me motivated and that kept me driving. And that illuminated the path for me to go on and continue to study and to immerse myself in that language.
So to sum it up, like two goals in total. One is to achieve the goals one by one, the smaller goals, and then gradually lead up to the larger goal. And the second one is to envision yourself in the future being fluent in the language.
Love it. Basically, what I teach and what my students use is three goals. So you went very close.
Hmm.
Basically, if you see this lifetime, there's this big vision, and that's like I want to have a Korean family type of goal, you know? Think of that in your like target language. Like, do you want to sit with your heritage languages and you want to sit there and eat with them and speak with them with your ancestors that have this heritage language, right? Or you want to have so this is the vision. And this is something that you will reach in a couple of months, years from now. Your big vision. Wow. Okay. And then it comes down to shorter term goals. We would call these direction goals. If you have hit them, you know you're in the right direction. So this was, for example, what it would be like reverse engineered. What would I need to know in 2 months if in 1 year I want to sit with my family on the table? Oh, in 2 months I need to know how to, let's say, make my own opinion count. I want to express my own opinion, but I need to study for that, right? In a foreign language. So in 2 months, let's say, I want to open up a TED Talk, look at the topics that they're talking about, and then I want to make a video about myself talking about the topic and about my own opinion about that. And I think that that's doable after 2 months of studying, but it takes study, right? And that's why this direction is like close, like closer. And like, let's say if you came 20% of the whole goal, you probably have already hit this direction. And then what is the third goal? Of course, in order to hit this direction, we need to come closer to how do I even make a video? How do I even start a video? What do I even say in the beginning of the video? And this is where the action goals come into play. These are small goals that you can make within like this week. You can't make it right now because you need to study for it. You need at least maybe an hour of actual study to reach that action goal, but you can reach it within a week. And we consistently have those small wins, those small action goals. And after you've hit your action goal, let's say 5 times, the first action goal was how to start the video. Hello guys, my name is All right. The second week, you were able to already start talking about, let's say, appearance. Hello guys, my name is Katharina and my hair is blonde. The third week, fourth week, all right? And then after 2 months of doing action goals and consistently winning, you're feeling good. Now you're motivated to go ahead and say, hello guys, I'm here. I'm here together with Priya. We're talking about multilingualism, you know? And then after 2 months, you're actually comfortable to doing that because you had many wins along the way.
That's really interesting. Uh, do you have like a favorite language? And if yes, then why so?
Let me ask you first, do you have a favorite language?
Uh, I would definitely say English because it was the easiest one to learn.
How did you learn it?
See, the thing is, you know how English has the S, right? It's one S. But in both Hindi and Bengali, there are three different S's which are used in three different places. And sometimes they sound the same. So you have to learn up the spelling itself. So it's not very easy to do that. So because I found, well, at my age, I find English easier to learn. I guess that's why it's my favorite.
Love it. You're born before 2010, is it?
Yes, I'm born in 2007.
Yeah. Okay. So I love what you're saying about English because ever since I would say my generation, English has just become the lingua franca worldwide, is the language and that's why I agree with you. English is one of my favorite languages. Now, you have mentioned English is your first language.
Yes, it is.
Love it. Yeah. So I think I'm very grateful that German is my native language because of what you're saying, similarly to what you're saying for the Indian languages, Urdu and Hindi. Is it correct? Urdu and Hindi?
Hindi is the national language, and yes, I know the national language as well.
Mhm. You was talking about the three S's,
Yes.
those two languages.
So it's Bengali, which has three S's, and then there's Hindi.
Yeah, Bengali and Hindi. Love it. So what I want to put forth with that is that similarly in German, we have very different sounds with S, sh, different sounds. S, st, sp. And these all need to be studied, right? Ü, Ö, Ä. But once you're through with it, like you're through with it. Now there's also grammar, there's also pronunciation. It's all to be put into consideration. And saying that, I'm grateful that German is my native tongue because it's significantly, let's say, more complex than English. And I'm also grateful that I grew up in Italy because also Italian is significantly more complex than any other uh, Romance language I've came across so far. Now, one of the languages and I want to call this my favorite language that has changed my life the most was Spanish. The reason why, and that's a phenomenon known to many people, is that with Spanish, their heart just opens. All of a sudden, I would kind of call it like their hips unlock. And this is, they like unlock their dancing, they unlock even like if we like talk about from woman to woman, they unlock, let's say they're twerking, they unlock how to move their hips, they unlock their rhythm, they unlock even like their hair, because I have not always accepted my curls, but like through knowing Spanish and through knowing Latinas, they naturally have very curly hair. And that's why Spanish has become the most transformative language for me, alongside with German and alongside with English. So and Spanish. So these three languages are really my favorite ones. And then really the other ones are all my babies. And I all need to wear and to carry out those suits with great respect because these are really the ones that brought me where I am today. And when I say I'm in Bangkok enjoying time, it is because of those languages that I'm able to have those connections and have those fortunes and yeah, great mood and great knowledge of the world because I know those languages, definitely.
So culture plays a huge role in this.
Hmm. Huge role, yeah, definitely.
Right. So that's all for my interview. I shall be closing now.
Hmm.
Uh, Thank you so much for joining us. And anyone who wants to follow Katherina's page, her ID is I am Katherina Fink on TikTok, YouTube, as well as Instagram. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and I am absolutely sure that the community will be extremely inspired by your story. Thank you for your time.
I'm very glad to have joined, and I'm very glad to have made this interview with you, to have also listened to your insights. And I want to share a huge thank you to the community for looking at this video. If you have watched until this point, I want to share with you that you have really done half of the work already. If you have started your language, you have already gone out of your comfort zone and you're starting to ring at new doorbells and you're standing on new welcome mats. And this is really the biggest achievement you have already made. So you can have a big check on a huge goal you have already achieved. Bravo.
Right. So that is all for my interview.
Mhm. Thank you, Priya, and I'm very glad to have joined.
Okay.